Hello and welcome to COYS Live number 12. My name's Chris. You'll know me as teenwolf7 from COYS. And we've got a debutant on today, Lex.
Hello. Yep, my name is Lex on COYS, but normally I'm just called Klaus in everyday life. I live in Italy normally, but I'm from Denmark. And basically I've been on COYS since 2005. But I've been a Spurs fan since I was 7 or 8, I think, because I have a mean big brother. And if I hadn't supported Spurs as he does, he would have probably beaten me up. So,
cool. Nick-Topspursman on COYS, and I'll start today. We're going to talk a little bit about our fixtures, what to expect, some difficult moments, maybe some more comfortable moments, some fixture congestion for sure. And then we're also talking a little bit about transfers today, who we brought in, and some other bits and bobs. So let's get started on the fixtures. I'm just going to bring these up on my screen. So I was looking at these. Interesting enough, funny enough, we're at home to start with for a change, just when there's no fans. So that seemed quite a convenient one. And Arsenal were away, but there's no fans. So I thought I noticed that one straight away. We kick off at home to Everton. We've played Everton a couple of times in relatively recent years, I think, at Goodison, though, from memory, not at home. Not an easy game to start with, because Everton, you never quite know what you're going to get, particularly at the start of the season. They've done a lot of transfers over the last few years, haven't really been that successful, but who knows, they may crack it this summer, although I haven't got long left to make some real moves. But we kind of know what to expect from Everton, I think, in terms of general personnel to start with at the moment. Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, Ancelotti is a pretty good manager. He should have them pretty well organised. I felt like we dealt with them relatively comfortable just before the end of the season, without ever really getting out second gear. To be honest, we didn't play particularly great, but we still managed to win. I felt it was relatively comfortable with our own goal. But we followed that Everton game up with a trip away to Southampton, which I'm a little bit concerned about. Southampton, to me, was starting to look a very, very good little side. I think they've got a very good manager, potentially, as well, in Hassan Hüttl, or Hussein Hattel, can't remember which way you pronounce it. Yeah. I think it just, for a manager to recover from a 9-0 defeat, as he did, I think deserves a massive amount of credit. Because and to the club as well for actually sticking by him, because so many clubs would have just pulled the trigger, I think, after a result like that. And they really started to look quite a good side, I thought, in particularly after the restart and just before that, actually. And that's going to be a tricky away game. So it's not the easiest away game for us to start with. The next league game will be Newcastle at home. I'd expect us, to be honest, to win both of our home games to start with, for sure, because Everton and Newcastle are not one of the top sides. The big difficulty for us, I feel, guys, I don't know what you think, is if I just read out the dates for September to start with. So we've got September the 12th, Everton at home. September the 17th, Europa League second qualifier. September the 19th, Southampton away. September the 23rd, Carabao Cup third round. September the 24th, a day after, Europa League third qualifying round. Saturday the 26th, Newcastle at home. And September the 30th, Carabao Cup round 4. Now that is some start to a season in terms of fixture congestion. To play 2 games one day after the other is quite unsure if that's pretty unheard of, apart from maybe Liverpool this year with the Club World Cup. How do you think we're going to handle that, guys?
Well, I mean, one thing that I'm surprised about is that we've loaned anybody out already, given we knew these fixtures were coming. I would have thought the likes of Skip would have been involved in some of those games, and maybe even Parrott, I don't know. So I think it's going to be a problem. I mean, especially the 2 games in 2 days. I don't see how, and we don't even know where they're going to be. The Europa game could be abroad. I don't know. Mourinho isn't going to want to throw any cups away, is he? But he might have to sacrifice, or he might have to play in the same way Liverpool played the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all of the kids in one game. He might have to do the same.
Sage just raised the point, only if we get through to the third round of the Carabao Cup. I believe we start in the third round of the Carabao Cup because we're in Europe. So actually that's the third round is the one in September. We've got 2 qualifying rounds in Europa in September as well.
Well, I think sorry.
Go on,
the thing is, like, also you have to consider not just how many games you play, but the traveling as well. And the problem is that basically this is why back when we were talking about if we wanted to be in the Europa League or not, basically you lose 1 day of training by traveling.
Yeah.
Then you arrive, you have a tactical session normally. So you're prepping like on shape, how to close down, stuff like that. Then you play the game. Then if you're lucky, you fly home the same night and you can only do light training the next day, if training at all. Which normally is, again, basically the last training you have before the weekend game. So you lose 2 days of training and you're playing so you basically have only light tactical training during the entire week. And just 1 day of prep for the league game. So you lose tactical preparation. You lose physical fitness, but then again, we can rotate depending on the numbers we have. And we don't play a high pressing game. That's going to help us slightly in
the
terms
other
of like
thing
not
with the
expending energy.
Europa is because they're one-off games.
Yeah.
Yes, it's less fixtures, but you also can't gamble on where a 2-legged game. We could play a weaker side away. All right, we've lost by a goal, but we go at home and we can beat them and put a couple of players in. But now it's a one-legged game. We could easily be shocked by a team. Any team can have a bad day. And so that means, do we then have to take some of the bigger players that we wouldn't really take in a 2-league game necessarily and play them?
I think, but on the good side though, this is Mourinho, not Pochettino. Like part of you can guess the positive side of him, and he's quite good at killing matches. Now, especially when the blocks are looking to be set, we're defending in the 5 block, attacking the 5 block. They know the positions, can close down space quite well, counter-attack quite well. It gives us the chance of closing off games, starting them strong, including in starting 11, but then starting to sub quite quickly and kill off games on the counter. This is something we probably wouldn't have done under Pochettino, and unless probably not comfortably, and probably wouldn't have rotated or rest subbed as much either under Pochettino. So in a way, with Mourinho's strengths and weaknesses as they are, it's not optimal, but given that we won't press as much high, we can close off matches, and he's a bit more shrewd and rest subbing and rotating. I think we'll get by, but we will have to start strong teams, get the first goal up, close them off the counter, close the game.
What are they changed the rules for Europe next year to increase the number of subs? Or is it back to 3?
I was going to ask that myself, actually. I noticed for the Premier League it's back, but I don't know about Europe. Let me have a quick little look. And let me have a look. Europe 5 subs. See if anyone is anyone else in the audience.
I mean, I saw one of the messages come up about the loans. My point is the transfer window is still open till October, so we could have kept them and then loaned them out afterwards rather than send them out now.
But I think maybe that also ties into the wishes of the player. Remember, like Skip and Parrott signed contracts recently, and they might have said if they sign on, they want to play and they want to go out on loan and have a full preseason with the new team.
I think with the extended window, they could have maybe played the first couple of games and then gone out on loan anyway. I think that's what Chris said, and that's a fair point. But maybe they, like you said, they were saying, look, I want to go out on
especially
on
kids like Skip and Parrott who are like, they do have some power
highly
as well.
rated.
Like when they have,
a lot of clubs will be looking at them. I think there's some more points here. It says that if the IFDAB have extended it for next season, and you can take that option essentially as a league. So it looks like Premier League hasn't, but it'll be interesting to see. We'll have to try and find that out if Europa have changed the rule at all.
That would be pretty important. But we need the numbers. You need the numbers.
Yeah, well,
but the point of the travel is important as well. I think
very, very important.
If we end up playing, Bohemians or something, and we don't have to go that far, then it's better than if we have to travel to Azerbaijan.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. That's a real big point. And if we actually look now going into kind of October, it's a similar kind of story. Thursday, October the 1st, Europa League playoffs. Saturday, October the 3rd, Manchester United away. Then we've got a little bit of a break. Saturday, October the 10th, international break. But obviously a lot of our players play international football.
Yep.
October the 17th, West Ham at home. October the 22nd, Europa League match day 1 if we get through. October 24th, Burnley away. October 29th, Europa League match day 2. and then October the 31st, Brighton at home. So we're going to have to contend with this. Obviously, we've got used to kind of Champions League and playing, but we know that Europa isn't as ideal in terms of the.
It's much worse.
In terms of, it's just. I think King for King on COYS once did a calculation of it and showed the difference in rest time and stuff when you're in Europa compared to Champions League, and it is actually quite substantial. So we're certainly gonna need to utilise our squad. That's for sure. I think.
Yeah, but
do we think? I mean, there's internationals just before the start of the season as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Mourinho to request maybe 1 or 2 key players aren't picked.
Well, I hope he does.
Just because of the number of games we've got to play. I mean, we don't want them.
But again, I think here Mourinho, a bit like Ferguson, he knows the dark arts in this kind of sense as well. Like, suddenly they have a back pain or something, or like they feel something in the muscle and they pull out of if it's not important.
I think the difficulty is people like Kane being captain for England. He's not going to do that. There may be certain players that you might get away with doing it, but I think also when you like playing for Man United, I think Ferguson always found it easier because it's Manchester United. And we don't have that same draw. As good a club as we are, we don't have that power of Man United to try and influence players and manage and the international manager.
And also, it's a cup year. They want to play to be in contention for the cup, so the players have to be in on it as well. But I think if it's a non-important friendly or Nations League game, or they'll make like national coaches make the calls all the time with players as well, like all the coaches. So I think Mourinho is one of those guys who'll be on it. You know what I mean? Like he'll be trying to pull the strings as much as he can. So I mean, on that sense, it's not ideal. But again, like with the Europa League, I think he's gonna be juggling it pretty well.
Wolves when you consider how early Wolves started last season, I think they did a pretty good job league-wise, considering how early they started. And then they had that obviously we had that COVID break, but up till that point, look how competitive they were in the league.
And they hardly changed their team.
No, this is the crazy
I don't understand it. I swear, every match they've got the same team. They just seem to rotate like Jota, Traore, Neto, that kind of area. But a lot of the other areas of the team, like it's always crazy. Ollie at the back and Doherty and Johnny.
And Moutinho and Neves in the middle, Jimenez up front.
But it's crazy for 2 reasons as well, because it's not just how many games you play, it's also how you play.
Yeah.
And they play like a really fast-paced, up and down the pitch, like intense football.
They do. So it's remarkable.
The meters they run intensely is insane.
And I couldn't even say that they burnt out against when they went out. They were just they didn't play as well, and they got beaten by a team that played a little bit better on the day. Yes, or sucker punch. Yeah. So that can be done. I think obviously you have to have luck with injuries, don't you?
And
we haven't had the last.
They might have gotten slightly lucky with the Corona. I mean, of course, Corona overall is a negative development, but in this sense, I was expecting to crash a bit like a classical Bielsa team, like a March.
yeah.
Like they can't run anymore, but then Corona happened. So basically, right when you expect them to start, maybe not being able to maintain intensity in that system, they got like a 2-month break and they came back with a little bit of like shakiness to it. But they were able to maintain their play. So I think it was very impressive, but they might have had slight help with the Corona as well.
I'll be interested to see how we actually start the season, though, because under Pochettino, we know his training methods kind of were lending themselves towards being able to last the whole season. To come,
you hit your peak a little bit in.
But the start of the season was slow, turgid. We had strange losses. It will be interesting to see how it's different if it's different under Mourinho. I know this is a different year completely, but whether he'll have us try to come flying, or as we've got so many games, he'll just say don't exert any energy, and as Lex pointed out, just come out low block, no pressing.
That's the thing. The style. The style can affect it, can't it, Chris? I mean, like under Poch, it was high intensity, high pressure. You can only manage that for so long. Even Liverpool, if you look at them and the way they've evolved, have gone away from that all action, constantly in your face, pressing you, and kind of become a little bit more considered. They actually sit off at times now. They've evolved their game and they've got different ways of playing. I think that's what we need to get to. We need to be able to do a bit of low block, sit off, counter attack, and also be able to hold possession and break teams down. But I think I'm a little bit more concerned about. But looking back at the Premier League fixtures, what do we think of that November and December?
Oof.
That's a bit of a run.
Well, I'm hoping we're top by then, so we can afford a few defeats.
I'm kind of hoping we do a match 60-61 and get 11 straight wins to start the season. Not actually, that I'm realistic at all. But.
Actually, though, the November, December, again, we have pretty sneaky manager when it comes to like a season management and planning ahead as well. Yeah. Regarding like starting the games, Europa League games strong, and then closing them off maybe with a secondary, like a starting 11 basically. I think he'll do something similar in the Europa League because he knows the 6-pointers are around Christmas time. So that's the 4th, 5th, and 6th round of the Europa League. I think he's going to try and have 10 points, like 9 points in the first 3, maybe 1 draw in the 4th, 10 points. And I think he's going to start playing heavily youth in the 5th and 6th round, which allows us to focus on the 6-pointers in the league, where the other teams probably still have to play the strongest 11 in the Champions League. So I think I think he might see it as a sneaky way of getting quick qualification and then basically play youth and like have us fresh for the league.
As an aside, a quick aside, without going too far off topic, guys, what do you think Mourinho's target will be this season? Mourinho, not the club. What do you think he will be realistically targeting as an objective?
I think he'll want to win the Europa League and finish top 4. That's what he wants to do.
Top 4, win the Europa League. You think it will be the target? Yeah. What about you, Klaus?
I think he wants to, of course, reach the club expectations first and foremost, so he can like get his bonus and get that versus back. But I think he wants a trophy, and I think he wants a title challenge, not a leading title challenge, but I think he wants us to be in and around it. He wants us to be top 3, a bit like Dortmund tends to be, or Inter and Lazio were this year.
Sniffing around those positions.
You're around there. If you win a 6-pointer that maybe you weren't expecting, suddenly you're there. If the others slip up, suddenly you're there. So I don't think he wants to like lead the league from day one, but I think he wants us to be inside striking range. And then in 6-pointers, he wants us to like go up and sneak some wins. Or at least get a draw.
I tend to agree with you with the kind of personality he is. I couldn't imagine Mourinho setting out in his head at the beginning of the season, right, I think top 4 will be and trophy. So I'm thinking he'll be thinking we're going to try and challenge for the title. I don't think personally we have a chance realistically. I think we've got too many holes in our starting 11 still. Obviously, there's still a window to go.
Hopefully.
But not only that, there's 2 outstanding teams in the league of a magnificent quality to catch that are hitting points totals that are almost unheard of year on year. So I think that makes it, for us to have any chance of winning it on the last go, we'll have to be hitting 95 plus points. And I just don't see how we can achieve that. But I think he will look at it though as that for sure. I think he'll be thinking, trophy for sure, Chris. I think that's definitely going to be in his mind. FA Cup, Europa League for me, because I don't know how he'll manage Carabao Cup. I don't envy him at all trying to manage that early round situation.
But he won't throw it. He won't throw it. He won't try his best to put out a team he thinks could win. But I mean, I can't remember. Are we? Is the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup seeded? So we would have a Championship or League 1 or League 2 team potentially. I can't remember.
Is it the 2nd round that's seeded? The 3rd round isn't. I don't know if it's seeded, to be honest, Chris.
Because that would help.
I mean, playing 2 games one day after the other, is he not going to have to play like kids in one of the games and sacrifice one of the games? So that's going to be the Carabao Cup, isn't it? Because he's not going to want to go to the Europa League.
It depends who we draw in the Europa League, because he might be thinking, if I pick my first 11 and maybe 3 subs. For the Europa League, and then fill the rest. I'm not going to bring in any more than those 3 subs, and I'll fill the bench with kids there. That still gives us an 11 of first team players that he could play, assuming everyone's fit and available. That gives him an 11 of first team players he could play in the other game.
True. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he manages it. I think it's going to require a lot of skill as a manager to shuffle the pack that early on. You could argue it's good to build momentum. If you do win the first game, the second game, and you win your midweek game, it's a good, because as we saw in the Leicester season when they won the league, that was all about momentum carried over from the previous season where they nearly got relegated and they went on that crazy run and they took it into the following season.
Yeah, but I think for Mourinho, it's not just about like trying to win a trophy. I agree, he does want to try and win a trophy, but I think it's not just about the physicality of winning the trophy. It's about what it means. Like, he wants to have a team that goes into every game winning. You can play defensively, but you want to win it. Yeah. And every tournament you're in, you want to win it. And when you're on the pitch, you want to win. And you're always attentive on your role to win. So, because it creates a different focus. And like, you can play the game in a lot of ways, but if you play with shape, distances needs to be maintained, you need positional swing. The key element is actually, having the desire and the hunger to constantly focus and constantly move. And that comes from like that kind of awareness of what it means to win, what you have to do to win all the time. So I don't think he wants to break that kind of habit of mentality of approaching. I think he wants to have like a continuum of how you act as a player under him, whether that be in the Carabao Cup, whether you're 16, whether you're 18, whether you're 30. Whenever you pull on the shirt, you go on the pitch, you know how to play, you know what role you have. You have to do it for whatever many minutes you're on the pitch, and you have to do it 100%. And more than anything, it's the method and the mentality he wants to continues. And that means that you're trying to win everything you touch, basically. You can do it in different ways, but that's the approach. So I think he will want to win it, any competition he's in, and be that with youngsters.
Easier said than done.
Of course. But
but I think totally right, though. I think that is what he'll be trying to imprint upon them. Going back to the Premier League matches in November, December. So we've got just to finish on the fixtures, really. So we've got, if we look at mid-November, it's really gets difficult. Man City at home, Chelsea away into December, Arsenal at home, Palace away, Liverpool away, Leicester at home, Wolves away, and we finish the year with Fulham at home. So there's a few real crunch, as you said, like 6 pointers in there. But if you do win those and you are in a decent position, your season could be elevated. Like, do you remember in 15-16, we weren't touted to be anywhere near winning the title. Top four would have been amazing for us. But we got to a position where we stuck, like you said, Lex, you hung around that area, and then we won against City away. And then all of a sudden we all looked at each other and thought, hang on a minute, this is not right. What's happening here? And all of a sudden you're in a title race. So you never know what could happen across the season. Injuries to Liverpool and City players, Alexander-Arnold out for 3 months or 4 months. And so anything can happen. So I think you're quite right. You have to try and hang in there. And those matches will be key in any title. If you're going to win a title, you have to win those big matches away from home. And at home, you certainly can't lose them. That's for
Don't lose them. Mourinho will be like, don't lose the away games. He'll
win
set out for a 0-0 in those, I would have thought.
I think he'll set out to score one goal and hope not to concede more than one in that sense. We might win 1-0, we might draw 1-1, but he's going to be tight, and then he's going to see what I can do from that. So
just to finish on the fixtures, Peapod said the League Cup third round is not seeded. Brighton faced Villa last season, so it looks like it's not seeded. So let's hope for a good draw in that, because obviously we want to go as far as we can in all competitions we enter, because you said it breeds a winner's mentality. If we can. If we can go far, please let us win a trophy this year of some kind. It would be nice. Then moving on to Lex. You love him a lot, so let's let you give us a breakdown of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, if I pronounce that right, and his strengths, his weaknesses, what you think he can bring to the table, and then let's have a debate.
I think first we should probably start with his name. And he is half French. That's why it's called Pierre. It's not a Danish name. He's from Denmark, born in Denmark, from Copenhagen, but his mother's French. So he's called Pierre, like the French name. But his two last names, so his middle name is Emil, which is a Danish first name. They use his middle name. And his last name, which I think is causing some troubles, is, I'm going to say it like in 2 syllables, but it's said in one quickly. It's Højbjerg. Højbjerg. So, but when you say it in speak, it will be Højbjerg.
Højbjerg. Easy.
Very good. So initially divide it in 2, Højbjerg, and then just say it really quickly, Højbjerg.
Yeah, perfect. Huddleston's got it.
Lex, you've been really positive about this signing. So I know we had a few debates about, because I was obviously really keen for a defensive midfielder. I'm not sure if he can play that role, but then you're not sure we're going to play that system.
I was positive because I think every player needs to be a fit for the given role in a given system. So I didn't necessarily want a true 6 if we didn't want to use him as a true 6. And I don't feel, when I say 6, I mean a defensive midfielder. And when I say number 8, I mean like a more of a box-to-box role. But so right away, when I saw us come out of the COVID break and we started using that 2 sitting in front of the back 3, I thought he might well use that, because that's also how you play a 4-2-3-1, which is played quite often. And so at that point, I thought, a guy like Javier might actually make sense, because he used to be more of a number 8, basically. That used to be one of his weaknesses as well, being too much of a box-to-box and losing a sense of position, getting drawn into pressing all over without pressing the correct place. He was just pressing. And also thinking he was a bit too good than what he was. Because remember, this guy, Denmark is a small country. So when you go to Bayern at 16, and Guardiola is like, I'm going to make you the youngest ever, debutant for Bayern Munich, and play you in several different positions. He was training. I don't know if some of you have heard the interviews he gave to the podcast.
Yes,
so
I listened to it.
He was supposed to actually train with the U18s, I think, originally, and then they pushed him into training with the seniors. So he was suddenly training at like 16 and 17. Was training with Thomas Müller and Schweinsteiger and Robin, stuff like that. So I think and under Pep he was fairly disciplined. But when he started getting loans or went to Southampton, I think he arrived a bit thinking he was a bit better than he was, that he was coming from Bayern, the super kid. And he left Bayern mainly because he wanted to play regularly. He was very ambitious and very driven, and maybe too ambitious at that point. So he left Bayern as a superstar in the making and arrived to Southampton. And I think he thought it was to start a small club and he could do what he wanted, basically. And that created some weaknesses in terms of discipline and positioning, that he would do what he wanted. And this is also what I said when we were talking about it in the thread, that I didn't used to rate him that much, because you could see he had this all-around capacity to him. Good engine, fairly good technique, fairly good vision, good courage, could lead, could organize. Great power, actually. Even though he's not like a Wanyama built, like Scotty Parker, he hits harder than what he looks.
You can see that he clatters people and he also eases them off the ball. You even saw that yesterday.
He can out-muscle much heavier players. And I think it's a combination of pretty good short acceleration and timing. So he arrives and uses his body well with speed. So
he gets at a good angle to take people as well.
Takes good angles.
He gets his body in good position.
And he has good timing, which suggests he has good positioning and reads the game well. So he'll make that short burst of acceleration to arrive at the right time, and arrives with pace into the challenge.
The positioning thing was the thing that concerned me when I'd seen him for Southampton, is that he seemed to lose his way and kind of go all over the shop. And I was thinking, that's the last thing we need. We need someone to sit. But having said that, yesterday when we played that system, I know it's only a friendly, he was very, very. He made a couple of runs, certainly more than Winks, but at times he dropped in towards the centre backs, and he found himself in a very central area. It wasn't like he was doing a Sissoko and going out to the right wing constantly.
Exactly, and I think that happened on the Hasselhüttl, I think, like that development.
Because the stats bear that out, don't they? I mean, he's number one in interceptions. You don't get that if positionally you find yourself in the wrong place. And also he was mostly playing in a 2, wasn't he, at Southampton?
Yeah, with Ward-Prowse.
This is the thing. I think that's why we bought him as well, because he was playing this sort of like dynamic 2.
And they were playing that 4-2-2-2 system. And he was playing in there with Ward-Prowse.
But it was tricky though, because I was trying to figure out if it was based on sides, who did what when, or was based on who was who, and it was.
I couldn't figure out when I've watched a few of their games. I still can't. He seemed to be slightly deeper, I'd say, probably 60-40%.
Yeah, but also he also used to be the one pushing out more to cover laterally, and Wink and Prowse would stay more central. So it was a weird split of assignments they had, and it wasn't obviously had.
Working well for a bit, but then you were convinced.
And
again,
this is the thing.
The system.
Again, I think it's always about considering the characteristics of the player versus the role and what they're asked to do.
Yeah.
And this is why I wasn't that worried, because his weaknesses was, if I'm like drawing him up on a list, it would be used to be thinking he was better than he was, lacking positional discipline, getting drawn out of position a bit. And I'd say also he has pretty good technique for an all-round midfielder, but not good enough to be like a 10.
Right.
No, he doesn't have the touch to be a 10.
Feet and
or
in those really
between
tight
the lines.
spaces.
And he pings the ball well, so he can shift it, but he doesn't cross it well. So you don't want him like overlapping into wide area and having to cross it. But he can he can shift it from the center. So that's his 4 weaknesses. His strengths is, like I always said, good reading of the game, attentive. He's been taught now to be positionally disciplined. So he would like to be attentive reading the game and positioning himself as the role he's been asked to do. But it's a perfect Mourinho player because he's physically powerful. He's pretty mobile for his size. He reads the game well. He's tactically disciplined. He's pretty all round in the defensive game and offensive game for an 8 or a 6. Yeah. So he has good enough technique to be an 8 or to be a 6 in both phases. So technique in the defensive phase is tackling, it's arriving at the right timing of the ball, it's positioned correctly and stuff like that. It's a technical, tactical thing. In non-possession, so defensively. And offensively, of course, it's position your body correctly to get the ball, if you pressure, opening your body correctly, being able to pass the right way, stuff like that. And he had that well enough to play the 6 or the 8, but ideally, like, he's not really a 6 or 8 at this point of time, so it's pretty ideal for him being in this role where, like, sometimes he'll push up slightly higher, sometimes he's the 6, sometimes he's the 8.
Could he play with Lo Celso, and more importantly, could he play with Ndombele?
Yes, he can, because again, the most important thing is that he has the characteristics to do so, and he's willing to do a tactical role. Yeah. And it's not difficult to understand what to do if you're willing to listen and you're an intelligent player. So, and he is. So I think you'll see that actually. I think against small teams, you'll have a 10 push into the 8.
He said something like that in an interview, didn't he? Where he considered his role as being...
I think the term.
Yeah, I think that's a momental thing.
Making the other players...
I have to say I'm extremely impressed with how well articulated he is. I don't think I've seen many footballers that well articulated in interviews and how considered they are. That does give me a lot of encouragement in terms of, in that area of the pitch, you want someone to lead, but also to be considered, to understand the game. And you get a lot of good players. I'll give you an example. Exactly. Ndombele is a massive talent, vision, everything on the ball, but his intelligence, it's hard to explain, isn't in the all-round understanding of all phases of the game, isn't great. He's very much come off the streets with a lot of skill, a lot of ability to mould him. Off the cuff, yeah, exactly. Whereas you want someone in there that does understand. Michael Carrick, I think you said about before, Chris, understands the game, can create a base for the team and a foundation. Do you think he could play as a sole 6 if we did move to a 4-3-3?
I think so, because I think, again, he has to... I think what you're saying is, like, some players have an instinctive understanding and intelligence about the game, and other players understand the actual system that they're playing, like understand the roles, lines, distances, and understand where everybody's supposed to be from that. Like, they have almost a coach's aspect of, like, the system and the game. Yeah. And I think he has that. He thinks, like, he takes a step back and he tries to understand what is the purpose of this position and these lines and where everybody's supposed to be. So I think he has that. I agree. And that's also why he can be vocal and help others having that. So when you combine having that vision and that approach to the game with then also being like somebody who wants to make the others better by demanding as well. Like we saw Lloris doing when he like bollocked Son. He would do the same, Højbjerg. Not because he wants to bollock someone. It's not like Roy Keane is just aggressive. But
we definitely need a bit of that in
he's
that
aggressive,
team,
but I think he's selectively aggressive as well. I think he does it quite on purpose to like inject the right intensity and the right awareness into his teammates.
Yeah, you don't become a club captain in the Premier League at 23 if you're just shouting at people for no reason.
No, that's true. You don't just get made captain.
He doesn't just shout. I think he's very kind of selective about when he does it. And
I would imagine he articulates
understanding the system.
His point.
So it's a combination of not just leading, but leading with organization. You know, like he's trying to get the team sorted.
All right. So let's, Chris, why don't you give us your thoughts on Joe Hart and also the homegrown situation with the club and where we're at and what you think we need to do, really?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, Joe Hart coming in as our third keeper. There's been a lot of talk about how we've had 3 non-homegrown keepers, and it seemed a bit pointless. especially as all the other big clubs seem to have aged English keepers as their third choice. We'll come back to the homegrownness. I don't think he's coming here as third choice. No. I think he's coming here as second choice. I think Mourinho's had a look at Gazzaniga and decided he's not quite right. And he's probably made Hart certain assurances that he might get cup games. Certainly with all the games coming thick and fast, Hart's already said that's the sort of thing he likes midweek. So I think we'll see him. The fact he's English, I don't see a lot of downsides in the signing, if I'm honest. I mean, the big one is he any good? Because I'm not sure we know anymore. I think his confidence took a massive hit at Man City when Guardiola kind of tried. He basically came in, obviously didn't want him to start with, but still tried to get him to change the way he played with his feet. You know, he's not as bad as Lloris with his feet, but he's not as good as Ederson with his feet. So he tried, but he just wasn't as good. And I think all facets of his game were built on his self-confidence, self-belief. Yeah. And if he's lost it with that one thing, I think that then led into all of the, starting making more mistakes. He's second guessing whether to come out for catches or not, which before he would just come out, grab it, come out, punch it. He had absolute belief in everything he did. And then since that time, he hasn't really, he was on loan to Torino, on loan to West Ham.
Not his way, is he?
Yeah, exactly. And then at Burnley, he kind of came in when Heaton and Pope were both injured. But they did start conceding a lot of goals. And they went back to Heaton. Obviously, he'd been there a long time, had a rapport with the back four, and everyone knew exactly. It's kind of like very comfortable there. And maybe any goalkeeper might have struggled when they came into that team at that point. And then he just was unable to find his way back. So if he's confident and if Mourinho can build him up, he will be a good signing. I think he's not that old. He's obviously ripped. Anyone seen the videos of him?
Yeah, just a little bit.
maybe a bit too much, but I wouldn't want to be one of the defenders behind him. But one of the other things I was thinking about was he is experienced, and in the same way as Højbjerg speaks, Hart speaks very eloquently as well, and also does seem to have a tactical understanding. So I was thinking, even when he's not playing, we've still got training to do. We've still got matches against each other. He can be another voice on the pitch for the other team. So Lloris at one end, Hart at the other end. Actually, and Hart speaks more than both Lloris and Gazzaniga. He does speak more. And he even in training, he will be able to get the message across, be able to organise the defence in the way that Mourinho wants them to.
And remember, the keepers train together. So they have a massive amount of input between each other, helping each other out, maintaining the culture of training as well, like being focused. And that's another thing. Like, it's not just about like how much you train or how you train. It's all in the head. Like, the coach, of course, can implement a style of training and a culture he wants, but he needs his captains in a certain sense. Like, he needs to have players who like exude like kind of like the attitude he wants.
If you look at that's the very best teams, like Chelsea when they're at the best, and Manchester United, they didn't just have captain. They had Roy Keane for sure, but they had leaders all across the pitch, and sometimes leaders you might not even imagine, but they're a leader behind the scenes. And you need, like I think Højbjerg mentioned in his interview, you need 11 leaders on the pitch, and that's definitely an area for me where we haven't at times. You often look up and you think, right, who's going to get us out of trouble here? Who's going to grind that result out for us? And in many ways, Dembele was not necessarily vocal, but he was a leader on the pitch. He led by example, and players, you look at him and go, cool, I'm lifted by Dembele being on with me because no one can get past him. Same for people like Wanyama, strong presence in midfield, and it makes it easier for you to play and to feel confident and comfortable on the pitch. So I think it's definitely important that we bring in more lead type characters.
Mourinho likes men. He's the same as Harry Redknapp in that regard, and he likes men around him. Men who've been there, done it. They know exactly what they need to do to win games.
But I think for different reasons. I think partially for different reasons. I think Harry Redknapp is, and I don't mean this as a kind of like a negative on him or critique, but he's a true old school manager in the sense that he will manage the morale of the team, who's in the lineup, who basically plays where, knowing how the players are have a natural instinct of playing, and then work a bit of overall shape, and then just let them play, kind of predicting how it'll probably go based on knowing the players. Whereas Mourinho is very much a system or concept manager, as you call them. Like, he knows how he wants to play, he knows the shape he wants to play, he knows the movement, he wants everybody to play in the role, and he wants to implement that knowledge and automatize it into the team. But to do that, even though it's very different ways of being a manager, it all starts with the players having the right mentality in their head. And like,
it comes back to that, doesn't it?
He wants when they step onto the training pitch, they're like on it. And he wants those captains, not just in the game, but he wants them in the drills. He wants them in training. He wants them when they're even getting the shirts on before training, He wants that. And I think there's a quite cute story actually from Mourinho about like when he was at Porto, and they played a training game, I think. And they weren't maintaining the system, the discipline, nothing. And they were going into the dressing room for the break. And the captain, who was the captain of Portugal as well, I think at that point, said, wait outside for 5 minutes. He went in, closed the door.
Oh, I've heard, yeah.
Opened the door for 5 minutes, said, now you can come in and coach us. Because again, you can do as much as you want as a coach tactically about shape, drill, whatever. But if the head is not there, if the approach is not there, you will never get a yield. And I think...
what about the homegrown those leaders, Chris?
First, I mean, I was looking up the rules because they are a bit complicated. Actually, we're full. So if we take the European rules are more strict than the Premier League rules. So the European rules, it's all about maximum. So you're allowed the maximum of 17 non-homegrown players, and that's regardless of age. So for Europe, Jedson, for example, counts as non-homegrown. But for the Premier League, he could go into the under-21 list. So he's using up one of our European, and I think we need to work toward the European numbers.
And we'll need to shift out to buy, basically.
Exactly. Ben Davies obviously takes up a space in Europe where he doesn't in England as well. We did have, so obviously Vertonghen and Vorm left. Their spaces have been taken up by Foyth and Højbjerg.
Yeah.
Right.
So we are in a position where we have to let players go in order to sign them. Also, with the actual homegrowns, they actually split that into two as well. There are 4 club-trained spaces and then 4 association-trained. So our 4 club-trained spaces would at the moment go to Kane, Winks, Rose and Carter Vickers. And we haven't got anyone else who could fill those because Tanganga would be considered... he can go into the B list, so he doesn't need to go into
same for Sirkin and players like that, basically.
Same for Sirkin, anyone else from the youth, they don't need to be named. Sessegnon isn't here long enough to be considered for that 4 anyway. So I think we'll be going in the same as always with not a 25-man squad, but bulked up.
We've got players there, Okay.
But the position is sell a non-homegrown to be able to buy one, and that is what we'll do. We won't buy before selling because
that's probably why we're looking at. We'll lead into transfers. We'll go into now really, and I'll talk a bit about the right backs we've been linked to. Yeah. But also that's one of the reasons we're probably trying to sell Aurier before we bring someone in. We need to make sure we've got a deal almost done before we bring someone in, particularly and that would tell me possibly it's a foreign option that we're looking to bring in. If that's the case, because if it was a homegrown player that we might just bring them in and take, so maybe that's the case. So some of these,
they can train, can't they though?
They can train, but as a gamble, you bring someone in, you can't sell Aurier.
Then you lower the price on who he wants to sell as well.
Yeah.
Force yourself to selling,
So just a couple of some of the right back options. You've got Max Aarons, Matt Doherty, Celik, Castagna. Klosterman was mentioned by Dragon yesterday, and Thomas Tavares was also mentioned today in the paper. So most of them share something in common. Most of them are 6 foot to 6'2" in height. That's typically what I'd expect Mourinho to kind of go for a fullback build. They're all relatively young, apart from Doherty, who's 28, very experienced, and some of them have played in back 3 systems as wing backs, which the way we're kind of playing this lopsided shape would kind of make sense, I guess, if we're staying with that. Slight concerns over Castagna. Watched a little bit of him for Atlanta, not particularly impressed. He isn't even first choice for Atlanta. He gets dropped for all the big games by the looks of it.
It's Hateboer who's the first choice.
It's Hateboer's first
but
choice.
He's just said he wants to leave as well, and that might affect us.
Right, so you think
might
that
just
could
move
be a
for
good
Hateboer,
option.
but they might also keep Castagna because they're selling Hateboer.
Because of that, yeah. You've got Klosterman. Now, it's a very interesting one. I personally can't see Leipzig selling him when he only signed a new contract in May. He has shown some promise. He's played centre-back and he's played right-back. He's quite a flexible player. I think the one caveat with Leipzig players is they've got a very, very good setup and system, and some of those players may well be elevated by the strength of that system. Even Timo Werner, who's gone to Chelsea, we may find. Obviously, he may be good enough to shine regardless, but just watch this space with Werner, because sometimes you get these teams that have such a good system that players all look amazing, but when you take them out of that system, they struggle a bit. I don't know much about Tavares. All I know is that he's very highly rated by Benfica and he's only 19 years old. There's another Tavares, he's not a relation, who plays left back for Benfica. He's slightly further ahead in his development. But again, he looks. I tried to watch a little bit of him before this just to see, and he looked quite mobile, good technically, height, which I think, as I said, is going to be quite a theme for Mourinho. This, and that's maybe why he doesn't want to go for Aarons. He's not as big as physically and as tall as the other players mentioned. And he did struggle for Norwich last season.
If we look back at what Mourinho's done previously, like Ivanovic was a centre-back before he went to Chelsea, and then he turned him into a right-back. I think he was playing for Varane at right-back as well. So he does like a bit. He's not averse to playing a centre-back at right-back, which he's shown with us as well, with having Tanganga there, Sanchez.
But I think, again, like Mourinho, a bit like you're saying about the system, any player will look better in a clear system. That's my dad, so now you know the whole family almost. But any player will look better in a clear system with a clear role that's been well drilled for a lot of reasons. Like you automatize a lot of tactical movements, you automatize some technical touches, but it also works on confidence. When you receive the ball, you feel that you know what to do, and you've trained it a million times. So a lot of it just flows. And even when you do have to decide, you know where everybody is, you have a sense of what to do or what you can do. So everybody in any system that's been well drilled and where you fit the role will always look better. But that's a very valid consideration for a scout to consider.
Yeah. And it's not always easy as well.
And it works the other way. Because when you're in a crisis and you don't have a system or you're firing a coach or whatever, everybody will look worse because they don't have confidence. They don't really know where everybody is. They have to think about positioning and like distancing and is it this system? Is that? So it's like a cycle, like a wheel that can turn one way or the other way, or spiral really. And so it's a valid point. But Mourinho very much is a systems man in the sense that he's going to have a concept and system with clearly defined roles. And that means that he's very conscious about characteristics of the player that he wants in every single role. And in the system we have now regarding Aarons, it looks like we're going to go with that lopsided 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 in non-possession, which becomes a 3-4-3 in possession, basically. And it seems that it's going to be lopsided with a defensive left and an attacking right. So what does one of characteristics I think you have to ask when you determine which player?
For me, you're going to need someone that's like pacey. You've got to have someone that can get up and down.
For sure, pace. You have to run 70 meters.
Recover quickly. And that's one of my concerns with someone maybe like this Celik. I've looked a little bit at Lille. It doesn't look like the quickest. It doesn't look like the most dynamic going forward. No. And for me, if you're going to play in that lopsided system, you've got to be someone that is really offering a lot in attack and can recover quickly.
But also, exactly. I agree. But I think you also have to come in, what do you want him to offer in attack? Like, I don't think we want like a Dani Alves technically, somebody who can go inside and even cut in and almost do like a 10 and positional switch with the offensive midfield. I don't think we want that. I think we do want him to contribute offensively, but in a fairly simplistic way. I think we want him to be able to stand super wide, have good enough reading of the game and understand the role to attack into the space at the right time,
and deliver.
Control the ball, cross it, or cut it back.
So Trent Alexander-Arnold then, job done.
Basically, nice. or very much like Atalanta plays. Actually, I think we want exactly what they do. And then sometimes even running the second post and header in, because who's going to be guiding that? His winger's not going to follow him. It's going to be a small full back, probably protecting the back post, and it's going to be like this 6'1" guy, boom, coming in.
Sage has mentioned Beckham type crosses. I think those crosses, and also I think you want someone that can also drive to the byline at times and pull the ball back, because that's very hard for defenders to defend. And
because
when you just put early crosses
in,
and when you just put in early crosses in all the time, it's very predictable. And a good defensive unit will clock onto that, and they'll start.
So kind of like the goals we conceded against Sheffield United.
Yep, very much so, Chris. Exactly that kind. They're the kind of dangerous cutbacks that I'm talking about, and you see City doing them as well.
But I think you have basically three options to receive the ball quickly and wide, because if you play slowly and wide, you're going to have the whole block on so you want a quick positional side shift, either directly, which is difficult, or a triangle, a cutback and then the shift. But the important thing, and this is going back to Højbjerg as well, why we wanted Højbjerg and not only wings and Sissoko, because we want to be able to cut it back and then shift it quickly with a ping, boom.
The other side.
And then, especially for the right wing back, who's going to rise slightly later than our left wing back, which is going to be our left wing forward when we're attacking, basically. So he's going to arrive quicker because he's in the midfield line, the left side. But the right side is coming from the defensive line, so he has to run further. So probably often we'll see an outlet initially on the left. The block is going to be pulled towards our left there, right? And that's why Auri often also had so much space, because the defense is going to be pulled towards the ball because it's playing a zonal defense. So it's going to condense the pitch around the ball, which is on our left. And then we have the space for the right wing back to run into, basically. And often be free. At that point, you have three choices. He can shoot himself. He can try and cross immediately for Kane or whoever is there. He can wait for a forward running, like away from the goal, but in front of him. And then he can cut it back, of course, or cross it or shoot. Or, which you saw yesterday with quite a bit, actually, was cutting between the lines, and you have a positional switch of the attacking midfielder, or Lucas, like the attacking right mid, who's pulling in between the lines. They positional switch, so the shape is the same. But now the fullback or wing back is basically a 10.
Yeah.
At that point, you can make a 1-2, shoot, or slip the ball in. So he does need to be slightly able to also slip the ball in. So I think that's what we want from the right back or right wing back. We want a player who can do these three things when gaining possession. So you need pretty decent control to take a 40-yard pass, which has been pinged.
And get it out your feet quickly as well, so you can see the play quickly and develop it quick.
So some technique, not extraordinary, but...
And what do you think about moving from to the right? That's the right back options. So obviously we'll see more. I think over the next week or two, I think we'll start to get some real movement there. Particularly if we do shift Aurier out, you'd think we'd be bringing someone in relatively quick or have a deal relatively advanced. If we do, sign a deal with Aurier. So next question I was going to ask is about loans and player sales. Chris and Klaus, what do you think about? What players do you think that we've got left would benefit from maybe a loan deal, if any? What do you think of the players that have gone out on loan, and who do you think will be leaving us, and what will be the impact of their kind of departure?
You want to start, Chris?
Yeah, I can start with the sales. I mean, obviously, Aurier going means we've got no right backs, so the immediate impact will be we'll bring a right back in, I would have thought. There's nobody else really looks like they're close to leaving. There's not many rumours around our players. I think, I mean, there was talk of an Ndombele-Skriniar swap deal a couple of weeks ago, which would be interesting if that happened. I know you wouldn't be too happy, Nick. No, but again, that doesn't help with our homegrown. But then I would see maybe one of our other centre backs being sold to replace the midfield of Ndombele. I don't know. I don't know if Lamela will be let go. He seems like maybe not the quality, but certainly the attributes and that's actually one of the problems. Is you think like maybe some of our, I don't want to say weaker, but maybe the likes of Lamela, the likes of Sissoko, they've actually been quite important in games for Mourinho, and I'm not sure whether he would actually want them to leave.
It depends. You can get a younger, better, like higher ceiling potential player, I guess, in that position. Like maybe David Brooks of Bournemouth we were linked to.
But so there's no need, again, but we could get him as well because of the homegrownness. There's nothing stopping us getting Brooks in.
we could, but money-wise, generating that money needed. Maybe you sell Lamela as a left-footed attacker that plays mainly from the right or can play central as well. For David Brooks, who can play from the right and central as well, left-footed, younger, higher ceiling, obviously due to his age, bit of a risk because of the injury, but hopefully he's over that. Maybe there's some sense there, but I can't see us doing a deal like that until the real priorities are sorted. And that's the
I agree. We haven't even got to our priorities yet. When we started, I mean, maybe we have with Højbjerg.
I think Højbjerg maybe.
We talked about needing a right back, a defensive midfielder,
I think we have,
and a backup centre forward, and we still haven't.
I think we would say 3 main priorities which we want to get as soon as possible, because again, we have a concept coach, who wants to drill roles, who wants everybody to know where to be, to play a very certain way. That takes some weeks to kind of get into and feel confident doing. And if you don't feel confident, you have been drilled, you're going to be slower, you're going to overthink it, you're going to spend too much energy, you're going to make too many mistakes, then you start overthinking even more, So it's quite important that they get into this positive cycle of feeling secure and being ready. And I think we wanted that at center mid, where we got Højbjerg now. So I think we're all right there. I think one at a right back, so 2 starters. And then I think one at a rotation center forward, which is slightly less important, but important, because we want to be able to rest up Kane quite aggressively this season, which means already in the early season program, like you said, it's dense, so you want those 3 in to allow us to rotate as much as you want and to play as we want to with the right speed and confidence. So those 3 are the key first priority signings. Then I agree, Lamela, if we can shift him, he's 28. I think you have both a technical and a financial and a homegrown perspective. So can we get in a homegrown player? Advantage, Financially, 28, injury prone, but he's got a pretty big name. Advantage monetarily,
get 20, 25 mil for him potentially,
And getting a younger player in, he has to be of the right type. Again, it's not just about body, it's about type and quality as well. So somebody of the right type and quality. But again, is he younger? Is he homegrown? I think we're looking for it. If we can get it, we're doing it. But I don't think it's something like we have a super high priority. And at the back, I think I think we're juggling the balls a bit. I think we're seeing, can we get 2 wing backs? If we can't get 2 wing backs, we might get a center back and push the Ganga into rotation at the right back. So I think we're looking at a numbers game here where Mourinho's thinking, which type do I need? Where is there flexibility? Can I juggle it, basically?
It's funny with the loans as well. With the loans, we were going to talk about Skip and Parrott and the show, and obviously they've both gone out on loan now. So is there anyone left in the squad that you guys think would benefit from a loan?
Well, ideally but again, what is a good loan? A good loan, I think, is playing regularly, of course.
Yeah.
Playing at the right level, because if it's too slow, everybody looks a genius and you're not really pushing yourself or getting better. And you need to learn what you want to learn or what the club wants you to learn. So do you want to learn to take responsibility? Do you need to learn to handle more physicality, more intensity? Do you need to learn more like tactical to play systems, to be very aware of positionings? And I think we want all of that when we send them out. They don't necessarily need to play the same system as us. That would be ideal. But mainly they need to get into that way of playing a system, a very certain role, being aware of solving a very certain task at all times, playing regularly and playing for points. Like you have to take responsibility and you have to actually, it has to mean something when you play, not a U23 game.
And who would you
send
those 3 things from the squad that's left now, you guys? Who would you both, anyone in particular, anyone at all? Is there anyone that you would send on loan from our first team squad now?
There is. I think the only thing would be if we're intending to use Sessegnon as a left back or a left wing back, then potentially you'd say, well, Sirkin could go out somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Sage
just said the same there.
But we need them.
And then obviously you've got the youngsters, the ones that came like Harvey White and all the others. They might go out again. I don't know.
I can see White being used in the Europa League.
Marsh, I don't know.
We need them. We need the numbers.
I can see White and Sirkin being used in the Europa League. I think is I think that's the issue we've got. Maybe, like we said, like the window doesn't close till October. So maybe we'll see how those first few weeks go with these games we've got, and then decide on loans after that point.
Yeah, And we did. I mean, we have done that before, where on transfer deadline day, we're all here waiting for a transfer.
We ship out a few players,
and next thing you know, with 4 players
bang,
gone
bang,
on
bang.
loan. It's like, oh, great.
We might raise a little bit of money from some of the players, like Luke Amos, for example. Not much. We've got a little bit. Yeah. Anthony Georgiou is another we'll probably sell. Carter Vickers will probably sell. Yeah. It's not going to be massive amount of funds, but it's something to add to the pot. And it's and then we can look at who's left, and those players like Sirkin, like White, will probably be needed in that Europa League squad, I would imagine.
I think it'll be interesting if any of the goalkeepers go out, the kids. So Whiteman.
Well, actually, I was going to raise.
Gazzaniga even.
Yeah, it was who was it? Here's mentioned Gazzaniga. Peapod said, if Hart looks promising in Mourinho's eyes, could we look to sell Gazzaniga? Yeah, I'd say that's a possibility, because he could do another homegrown keeper in as the third choice, Hart as the second choice, and that frees up another space outfield. So that could be something. I wouldn't be that surprised if we sold Gazzaniga, put it that way, having brought Hart in, because Hart's quite a big name to bring in.
Yeah, and I don't think you need like 3 big personality keepers. In that sense, I think the third one can easily be a lower prestige keeper for lower amount of money, who's even a homegrown one would be ideal. So do we need 3 of that caliber and age and wage? I don't think so. Not. I think we wanted Hart in, and I think Gaza, if we can, we'll shift him. Maybe we're already trying, or we already have a contact. So I think that's the deal.
Bob actually mentioned about keeping Cess, and is there any sense in keeping Cess and Sirkin when we don't need a third choice left back? I think it comes back to how he sees Sessegnon this season. Yeah. That he might see Sessegnon as a project over 2 or 3 years to become a left back. So he might well play him more. Yesterday he was playing in that kind of left wing forward kind of role. And
which is a wing back almost, basically.
And a wing back at times, like kind of flitting.
It's a fusion role. It's a weird role.
Yeah, it was very weird. And he may see him there, whereas he may feel, even though he's younger, he may feel Sirkin is actually more developed as a fullback. And it seems weird, him being 2 years younger, 3 years younger. But you watch Sirkin play, I'm a big fan of his from the academy, and he's a very, very composed player. And he's got you can tell he knows the position.
Yeah,
you can tell straight away when he plays. You can tell he'll get caught out, and he'll get beaten, and he'll get caught positionally. But he knows the position naturally better than Sessegnon at this point in time.
But Nick, do you think he can tuck? Can he play the Davis role?
Yeah, he's a very, very intelligent player. It's what I like about a few of the kids
physically, can he play that? Can he tuck into a back three?
He's not. I think the difficulty you're going to have with any youngster is the aerial bombardment in Premier League when you tuck in a bit more. Yeah. I'd have to see him really cope with that to know for sure. But he's not. If you look at him, he's not
he's not a small
shy boy. He's quite well built. He's quite strong for an 18-year-old. I think you noticed yesterday clattered into someone for a challenge at one point, right on the byline. It's quite aggressive for an 18-year-old fullback to go flying in like that and take the man and the ball. I think he could tuck in. It would be asking more, I think, mentally of him to stay switched on, but he's quite an intelligent guy.
That's the most difficult thing.
I feel that he could do it. And this pre-season is quite a good opportunity. I noticed Mourinho give him a lot of instructions in the first half. It actually switched to them, the camera, and he was talking to him really intently. Yeah. And I could see him doing this with his hands, Mourinho. So he was clearly telling him to me about the tuck in and become that third defender, basically, when Jensen pushes.
Well, in that case,
I think he can do it.
I think in that case, the kind of like the answer to the question changes quite a lot, because then we're talking most likely 2 different tactical roles. Like Sessegnon is going to be in play for probably like he played yesterday, left wing forward, left wing back, depending on the phase of play. Yeah. And Sirkin might be in play for that role as well if you want to close off a match and he's more defensive.
Yeah, I mean, one thing
play
to
Davis role and tuck, so he can play. In reality, it wouldn't be like a second, third, and a third choice left back. It would be first, second, third choice left back,
and another role.
And Sessegnon also in play for being second choice left wing back, left wing forward.
One reason we wouldn't loan out Sessegnon is the European homegrown rules. He needs in order for him to be club trained for us, he needs to be with us for 2 years before he's 21. So he needs to stay with us for another year.
Yeah. Interestingly, he's been training on his right foot, cutting in. That also tells me he probably plans to play maybe in the left wing forward, slash left wing
Well,
back
he's
role.
played left wing forward and right wing forward for Fulham a lot over the last couple of years. You know, before he signed for us, he played there just as much. He had played left back a lot because people seem to think he hadn't played left back. He had actually played quite a few games at left back, but he had a period of like 12 months where he didn't really play left back, and they pushed him forward after that. So it'd been a while since he played there. But is there anyone else at all? Do we think it's worth loaning out Foyth, or are we better off selling him?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him.
Not gonna keep him?
I don't think Mourinho rates him. I expect him to be sold.
It's a shame. Got a lot of natural ability. I feel like he's another that needed game time somewhere.
Yeah.
He lacks timing and reading of the game, though, and that's a little bit worrying. Like the thing about him is he's good on the ball. You can see, I think he's a good lad. You know, he tries, he understands roles, he's aware of like tactical roles and attentive. And that's almost even worse, because if he's like Aurier, disattentive and just not bothering, maybe you could kind of like make it click, you know. But I think he is, and that's the problem. That even so, the reason why he gets he turns into a hatchet man so often is the opposite of Aurier, because they're both hatchet men. Like once they get caught and need to turn and use their head to like reintegrate themselves, they just clip the man. But they're for different reasons. Aurier is because he's disattentive in positioning, and Foyth is it because he lacks timing in arriving in the marking.
That's true.
This is exactly the opposite of Højbjerg, who's good at taking position, but also arriving in the marking.
As Sage said, great assist yesterday. It was a tremendous, it was an outstanding pass. It really was world class. And Son's movement was great, the way he curved off. But it was a fantastic pass. But you've got to be able to defend as a defender.
As a centre back.
Like I like a ball player. Another thing is, can he then play defensive mid? Maybe, you know.
Well, that's something that was raised. I don't know.
But look at him. He turns clumsily. He's kind of, not to quote our famous quote on Zidane that he's wooden, but like he doesn't turn well. You know, he's not agile. So in centre midfield, you have
a chance there just to see, because I don't know. It does. I feel like he could. It used to play there when he was younger. He got moved to centre back. So I don't know. It seems it does have a lot of ability. It's just I don't think really we can't afford to give him game time where he makes guaranteed mistake in a match like Aurier has done, for example. Aurier to me is almost a guaranteed goal giveaway in every game.
But also,
you can't afford that.
I think he's poison for mentality. Like if you ask attentiveness and focus and discipline, and everybody's dependent on everybody and all this, and then you have Aurier just kind of like doing what he wants. No, but seriously, it's difficult to maintain the right culture on the pitch and in training if you have a guy who's breaking the rules.
You've got a loose cannon.
He needs to go. Like that kind of guy is the first guy. That also tells me that Mourinho, like again, was in a difficult situation if he has to play him, because I think if the first guy wants to shift out, this guy like that, you know. So
weird though when we thought he'd accommodated him with this kind of lopsided system, but then when we see yesterday. But then before he signed for us, Mourinho, as a manager, he actually mentioned in a punditry interview about this system. I can't remember. I think it was when he was talking about Arsenal, actually, in a Sky Sports interview, and he mentioned about this back three with the right back becoming a right winger. So he's been planning this a while. So it's not just Aurier. But I think with Aurier, you have no choice anyway, because if you ask him to just play as a defender, you're banging trouble.
For sure. He might have had this in his mind,
and then
realizing he had Aurier, just like, you know, I might as well try it.
It's a real... It's difficult because the fullbacks are so key to the modern game. And you look at the best teams and the fullbacks they have, like Liverpool, a great example. Robertson and Alexander-Arnold have every kind of attribute between them that you could want in a set of fullbacks. And if you put those two players into our team, the whole team would be transformed on a massive level to me with those two fullbacks, because they're so dynamic, they're so creative. Robertson is good in both phases of the game. Alexander-Arnold's a little bit weak defensively, but he's so good going forward, so good that you can accommodate that because he's world class going forward.
Actually, that brings me to another thing. Like Alexander-Arnold used to be a midfielder, I think. And if you look at like what characteristics does a mediocre midfielder have? Disciplined, pretty good engine, decent touch, decent technique, takes orders well normally, like he understands tactics and how to understand new systems. Then maybe you have centre midfielders who lack like the courage in Wing's case, or the technique to pass in Sissoko's case. to pass deep and constructively, and that limits them so much because you can basically let them have the ball, and then you have a problem progressing as a team. But if you shift those characteristics, again, it's all about characteristic play versus what you need in a given role. So if you shift that to a fullback position, you got decent technique, good like tactical discipline, good ability to learn positions, good engine. It's used to work both phases of the game. So basically, the only thing you lack technical wise is controlling a long pass and crossing, and defensively in a one-on-one, knowing how to show someone on the outside, turning quickly, knowing when to go for the challenge and when not to, and when to tuck in. But an intelligent player can learn that. And I think that might be something we'll see more of it, not just us, but in the future, center midfielders becoming attacking fullbacks, because the skill set starts to overlap more and more. So I think we might see more of that. Speaking of Liverpool's fullbacks, remember, if we continue with this hybrid, you basically have to forget how we play defensively and what official titles they have in the defensive phase, and then think in another way in the defensive phase, because we will have two very attacking wing backs. One of them, when we're defending, is just called a left wing forward, and the other one is called a right back. And then in offensive phase,
getting Son shifted right out wide.
That's the problem. That's the problem, because
that's why
Son will have to perform as a wing back.
Yeah,
occasionally.
And then when we played after the restart, Son played really well, and he wasn't as restricted in that kind of wing back role. He's playing. Yes, he was still playing from the left at times, but he was much more like the Son that I certainly know and love, which was drifting and cutting in, making those curving runs, getting at a fullback. We don't want to. If he gets shifted out as left wing back, he's never going to get anywhere near the level.
But it's not a static left wing back. That's the thing. I think Mourinho. Going by the Ipswich game, this is why it was quite interesting seeing that yesterday. Like often we want to attack very wide and threaten the space very aggressively with a five basically. So we have three like standing high, fairly central, and the two wing backs. So it's like a 2-3 almost. And then one of the three central can fall deep. He pulls away a central defender often. He'll try and get turned and play into the space he just left, or play the ball deep. Or he can play back to Højbjerg, and Højbjerg will play maybe deep immediately. But so it's basically, but another thing I think, so that's the shape and the roles. But we want to solve that dynamically. So Son won't play a fixed wing back. He'll play wing back, and then Ali will shift with him sometimes. Or he'll cut between the lines, and the guy who fell deep will shift into his role. So it's going to be this constant flux of like solving the same roles, but with different players. So I think you can sell it to him like that, and since that he's not just going to be stuck like a traditional wing back waiting for a side shift. It's going to be a quite dynamic role. And in the transition, which we are going to be a counter-attacking team, I think it's going to be basically four. So the three center, and then a guy behind them, which is most often going to be the 10. That can be Lo Celso or Ali. And at that point, he's in a wing forward. So it's going to be this weird role. When he is a wing back, which he will be at times, he's not going to be it all the time because it's going to be positional shifting. And when he is counter-attacking, he's a wing forward. So we might be able to get away with it. He might be able to enjoy it. He's not going to get tired of it, I think.
I think, hang on, I was just checking DC Spurs falling asleep, I think. I don't know if it's my fault or all of our fault. I'm just checking the DC Spurs, you awake? Oh, we'll leave him to it.
Meditating on position.
I was going to ask. I was dreaming of us winning the league. Chris, I was going to end by asking you, if we were signing a right back and a striker out of players we've been linked to or that you know of, who would you go for in those positions and why? So, Chris, I'll start with you.
I don't know enough about all the right backs you listed, so I'll leave that out. I think as a striker, we're going to end up with a British striker just because of our numbers. We've been linked with Callum Wilson. I think he would do. I'm not enamoured with him. I'd prefer someone better, but I don't think we're going to get anyone better. And he would probably do for a year.
I think it's decent as a second striker with us. Where you've got as a main.
I mean, 2 years ago he had a really good season. Last season he struggled. He does miss a lot of chances, but he was good enough to be called up for England. So he must have something about him. And I think I think he would do as a centre forward type, which is what Mourinho wants.
That's what he wants, yeah.
Yeah.
But he wants not just a lump, though, because, again, we're going to be counter-attacking. And I think we're going to play much more on ground. So he wants somebody who can hold it, play it off,
Wilson's
who
quick
can
as well.
and who can move.
Yeah, he's not Troy Deeney.
Yeah, Wilson's quick.
No, exactly.
Wilson's got good speed.
So
I think he
somebody
can...
who's static.
Yeah. And he could, what about you, Klaas? Any right-back candidates, when you think about a system they want to play, would you...
Well, if I was choosing, I'll probably choose maybe a bit differently. But I think going by what I think Mourinho wants, he wants a right wing-back who's quick, physically powerful, tactically disciplined, who can attack the second post at times, who can cut between the lines, and who can control a ping pass and then do the maneuver.
Cafu would do.
No, because Cafu wouldn't be big and tall enough.
Okay.
So I think we might try and get somebody who already plays that role. It's probably going to be foreign. I think it's probably going to be one of the Atalanta guys. I think it might be either one of those two, actually. It could be Hateboer, it could be Castagne. It could be Dorothy from Wolves I think Mourinho taps up players, and I think that's also why he's going to get more players than other managers we've had.
I like Doherty.
I think he gets.
I do like Doherty. I'm not sure how quick he really is. Doherty, it don't strike me as someone that's going to recover really, really quickly. And if he struggles in an area, it's defensively. 1-on-1 he's vulnerable.
Yep, but remember
ability. But what you're saying is. Yeah,
but the strength of that system, or the weakness, is that quite often the defensive right space is going to be covered by whoever's playing the defensive midfielder and the right centre back. So he cannot be Aurier bad, but he doesn't have to be like a monster. You know, he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So,
who would you go for as right back, just out of interest? Because I know you like your scouting and looking at players. So who would you choose as a right back if it was your team and you were looking for a player?
Well, it's more important if it's Mourinho's team because it's his roles and his system. So
I know I'm interested in your thoughts on a general.
If it was me, I'd rather go for somebody who's can do both faces, who is quick, but who's probably a bit more technical and aggressive in the tackle and savvy, but not necessarily like a powerhouse. You know, I don't think you need to be 187 to be good defensively at fullback. I think it's more about timing and like.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have been
attention.
able to play left back like I did for most of my career because I'm only 5'9", so I would have been straight out of the team.
Yeah, but I mentioned like a guy like look at Alves. He was a short guy, but he was strong defensively. Like remember he played for Juan de Ramos as well. He was a monster defensively, and he was 5'7", 5'6", and like there's a guy I mentioned him if I could just choose guy I think was a great player, two faces, can do both faces, has good personality. I would go, and who's cheap, is Kevin Malcuit of Napoli. Because, he's just come back from injury. They're not really sure if they're going to keep him or sell him, and they want to play an Italian bloke who's not as good, but he's Italian. So, and he's a great two-faced player, aggressive, quick, technically good, has personality as well. So, and he'd probably cheap. So I'd get him now, but he's not 187.
So he wouldn't. Classic. So we don't think he'll go for Aaron's then because of his
too expensive as well. I think we have to.
I think it'll only be about 18 mil. I think because of the fact they've been relegated. They were asking for similar for Lewis. I think Liverpool bid 10. I think they wanted like 18, 20. I could see us paying that, but if Mourinho doesn't want him, there's no point. There really is no point buying players that manager isn't going to play.
Exactly.
It will be a physically big right wing back. I think we can be pretty sure about that.
He has got quite a bit of ability. Aaron's. I still think Walker Peters, with the right loans, could have become a really good player. But
I think he will be a big good player. He just won't be our good player.
yeah. But all right, that's good. I think that's everything for today, guys. We'll see what happens. Obviously, in the next couple of weeks with the next lot of transfers. Maybe Aurier leaving, and obviously the next lot of friendlies.
What about questions from the group? Any questions?
Yeah, we got any other questions? Yeah, we can go for that. I see we're talking about Danny Rose, whether he was a centre midfielder.
He was a left back.
He was a 10.
He was a left winger.
Midfielder.
No.
Wanted to play centre midfield.
Yeah, and then he got played centre midfield.
When we sent him on loan to Peterborough and Watford, that's where he played. He also played for England under 21.
That's how I remember it, I think.
And then Harry Redknapp came in and said, "You're not a central midfielder. You're a left back."
Yeah.
And then we sent him on loan to Sunderland.
Yeah, played him right wing in 09-10 when he scored that goal against Arsenal.
And then we sent him on loan to Sunderland. He played left back and then left back forever.
I think the U21s even tried him at the 10.
Okay, we've got a good question from Sage just to finish. What are our very brief, because we've got to finish up now. What's our thoughts on King as coach?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I don't know if he's any good at being a coach. I don't know what he's done. I mean, it's always good to have people around that have an affinity with the fans, but it could just be that's the reason he's there, because, you know, to get the fans on side. I honestly don't know.
I mean, it's a classic that when you come in as a coach, you get this liaison, you know, this kind of like the club man who's going to appease the fans, and like the academy player is going to be like, what a legend, you know, when he walks around. This kind of thing. So it might be a trophy appointment, but also it can also have an effect of like in Italy, they actually have a position called like a team manager, which is basically a position where the players can talk to you and you're like a liaison between like the players and the coach, basically, as well as like a sort of an organizer as well. And I think maybe a guy like that also has that role, even if he's a trophy coach on the pitch. He might be like have that role that younger players can come to him. You know, if players have a problem, they can like have a word, and he'll say, oh, "Listen, go talk to Mourinho. Don't go talk to Mourinho. You know, I'll talk to Mourinho. Whatever." I think he can maybe play this kind of like psychological communication role.
I think he'll become more and more of a coach over time. I think
this is it. He might, because I think he might see it as kind of an apprenticeship.
Yeah. Listen, for me, Ledley King is the greatest centre-back I've ever seen in my lifetime.
And a clever player.
Robbed by injuries, a genius centre-back, which you don't see very often. And if he can, it's all about how you articulate yourself as a coach. That's the real skill. A lot of people have got good ideas, but it's about how you communicate with players.
Like that.
If he can learn that, if he can learn how to communicate, and we don't really know, just because he seems shy, it doesn't mean he can't communicate well as a coach. And if he can communicate his ideas, he will be superb, because his understanding of the game for me is the very highest level as a player. And I'm excited for him to coach Tanganga in particular, because I think that is a combo. He could create an absolute beast of a player, because Tanganga is already a really exciting prospect.
Yeah, but Tanganga is all about, like, what Tanganga needs, maybe more than like individual tactical coaching, is the only thing he needs is exactly what we're talking about with Hart and like those kind of the captains and the training as well. Yeah. And if he wants to and can stay focused on a role, on his responsibilities for an entire game, and wants to, everything is going to follow, because it's the only thing he needs. The fitness is going to follow. The discipline, the pitch is going to follow.
Massive ability, massive potential.
He has potential to be like a Yaya Touré, almost like this kind of SCNS, because he's that good. He's a number 8 who can play a 10. Like there's only 3 or 4 of them in Europe. Like that's that complete in the ball, you know, complete.
Are you talking about Tanganga?
No, sorry.
I was talking about Tanganga.
Sorry.
Tanganga.
Yeah, we'll play Tanganga at 10.
Sorry. I was talking about Tanganga, but Tanganga is not this dissimilar, but actually it's the opposite. In the sense that he has that mentality and like a focus and concentration. So I think
Levy could really take him up a level.
I think then it's completely opposite, actually, because in that sense he only needs like individual tips. You know, like for example, a big thing is, when do you go on the ball of your feet? You know, like, and
when not to dive in and things like that, because it's a bit of a weakness for his.
When to dive in.
Ledley was the master of staying on his feet and and hardly ever having to make a slide tackle, because he was always in that right.
I think the important thing we'll find out is whether Ledley can coach that to someone, or whether it was just so instinctive that he doesn't actually know what you have to do in order to be in the right position, or to see the danger coming, or how to make the tackle, you know.
But I think with Tanganga, we're talking details, because what shocked me a bit about him is he looks like he's 28 when he plays, or 30, like an intelligent 30-year-old.
Peapod said often the most talented players make horrible coaches. That is true, but the one thing I would say is the most talented players aren't always the most intelligent players. And Ledley wasn't just talented, he was intelligent. Very, very intelligent for a centre-back. And the way he conducted himself on and off the pitch, and apart from that, one time he got drunk or whatever, but when you think about how much he dealt with his knee and how well he dealt with it, this is a guy with a serious winning mentality in his head, and desire and determination and intelligence. And I think he could be even if he doesn't become a manager, he could be a great influence on the club and on the playing staff. And I'm really happy with that appointment. I think it's a great move by Mourinho. Hopefully, it will have a positive effect.
I think he can only win. You can only win by it.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't turn out to be a great on-pitch coach, he's gonna be like this liaison for the fans and the young players. If he does turn out to be a good coach, I mean, it's a plus.
He got his knee injury on his debut, Sage said. So that's typical Tottenham luck, isn't it? Right there.
It was a good debut, though. I remember it.
It was.
Besides
started in midfield. Started in midfield.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's all for this week's COYS Live. And thanks to the audience for coming along and sharing your views and listening to us three talk about football and Spurs. And we'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.
Come on.